Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. It is FPC Radio Live, and Week 4 is in the books. The Giants got, absolutely demolished, and they're really one of several really disappointing teams so far through the first month or so of the season. Playoff team last year, and they look like they've taken like 25 steps back.
They're 1-3. Their one win was come from behind against Arizona, which that's impressive because Arizona's been in most of their games, but then their losses have been so one-sided, right? 40-0 against Dallas on opening night, Sunday Night Football. Then they go to San Francisco 2 weeks later, get manhandled by the 49ers on Thursday Night Football. And last night, Seattle took care of business pretty easily. Now, they did play two of the top three teams in the NFC, and so far three of the top five teams in the NFC. If you're going to put, Seattle kind of in a similar level with Detroit below Dallas, Philadelphia, and San Francisco. So they've had some tough opponents, but they just look pathetic. And if they don't have Saquon Barkley, then we really get to see how poor Daniel Jones is as a quarterback, the $40 million man who's just not very good.
Yeah, I mean that's that's the crazy thing about it is all these quarterbacks. I mean, there's a lot of struggling quarterbacks out there, and a lot of them got big contracts this offseason, Daniel Jones included, as well as obviously Joe Burrow. You can chalk Joe Burrows up to maybe some injury struggles, but nonetheless, these guys still need to perform. And kind of to your point, I mean, yeah, I get maybe they're not going to consistently beat the best teams in the league yet, but they're not even being competitive. I mean, 40-0. That's not competitive. Last night really wasn't competitive. And they had an opportunity because, Geno Smith goes down for a quarter-ish with a leg injury. And, what does Drew Lock do? Goes down and leads a touchdown drive. Good for him. So, it's very, very, very disappointing if you're a Giants fan or just the norm, really. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, this is kind of used to this at this point. In other news, though, we talked about a lot yesterday. Certainly, the Sunday Night Football game that featured Aaron Rodgers on crutches in the booth, which was actually far more entertaining than the alternative, which was, who up in the booth and cutting away to her every time a touchdown or play was made on the field. It's like I don't care. I just don't. You know what I mean? I get no problem merging pop culture and football, but when a touchdown scored, I don't need a snapshot of Taylor Swift hugging her friends. I just don't. I'm good. Once, maybe enough.
She's on the NFL payroll. So,
yeah,
they are paying her to do this, from what reports are. And the other thing too is that was the highest rated Sunday night game in decades, right?
And
maybe
there it is.
There's 2 to 3 million Swifties who never watch football are going to watch because they love her, and even if it's just 3 hours of her watching a football game is enough to hook them in. We saw the London game with the cartoons and everything, so you're bringing kids in. They know how to market the product, and the ratings are still spectacular. So that's how they're looking at it. You or I aren't impressed with that, but they're bringing in kind of half-hearted fans, or maybe people that aren't even fans to watch football.
Well, and it makes you wonder how motivated the NFL was to see the Chiefs go to 2-0 as Swifties. Just saying. I'm just throwing the conspiracy out there. I don't believe it at all, actually, but for the sake of being reckless, I'm just going to throw it out there and create a buzz. No,
it took Brady 8 years to win a Super Bowl after he hooked up with Giselle. So
yeah.
Maybe there's some sort of curse of you date or marry a really famous woman that you don't win.
Yeah, hey, you never know. No, look, the Chiefs' problems go beyond some superstition or some potential voodoo magic that will kind of prevent them from doing what they're going to do. They got some offensive issues to work out, because right now it's Travis Kelce or bust, really, or Isaiah Pacheco, which, look, two really great players, but this offense lacks its explosiveness. And I think once teams start to catch up and stop playing scared, it's going to get worse. You know what I mean? Right now, I still think there's an aura with teams where it's they're gonna I don't know, they're gonna play like they're playing Tyreek Hill. Okay. And
Do you think defensive coordinators are that stupid to think that there's someone like Tyreek Hill on the field for the
no,
Chiefs at this moment?
but I think they're foolish enough to believe that Patrick Mahomes is a god. You know what I mean? Like overvalue what he can do on the football field. And it's not a knock on him. It's just the reality of the fact is, well, we all see the obvious that, you know, the scheme and the players around him were excellent. That's not knocking him, but when you start to diminish those schemes, no more Eric Bieniemy and the players around him, well, it becomes pretty obvious to those that aren't like wearing rose-colored glasses that yeah, there could be a step back in the offense. And now that Travis Kelsey is injured, or not injured, I'm sorry, getting older, he's off his injury. You know, he's probably not going to be getting any better. Doesn't mean he's getting worse, but he's certainly not going to be, I don't think, what he was last year, who was, I mean, essentially 50% of the Chiefs offense. So yeah, I think some defensive coordinators are, you know, maybe still believing that again, there's a gigantic gap between, say, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, or Patrick Mahomes and the next quarterback. And the reality of it is, he's the best quarterback in the league. But you know, I still think that like once teams realize, oh, you can kind of hit the guy. You don't have to like, you know, hit him with a pillow. You know, like we saw the play. What's his name? Just fly right by him, like almost recklessly. Like, oh my god, I can't hit the guy. And he, you know, it's like, okay, you can hit him, and you realize that he's not like terribly accurate. I mean, his best passes on Sunday were what, to wide open wide receivers?
Isn't that kind of the idea of the offense, though? Scheme up the
Sure.
wide receivers open
Oh,
and then hit them with it?
absolutely.
I don't know.
But no, but
Maybe
it
I'm
doesn't
missing
happen
something.
all the time though. So when you're forced to like someone actually, and this is great, and again, any opportunity I get to praise Tom Brady, you know me, I'm going to take it.
Who never had a bad September, never
No,
got off to a slow start.
I've
You know,
never
I mean,
never said that. I've
no,
never
but
said that.
my point being is the guy is the defending Super Bowl champion. So
Mhm.
he did get that last year without Tyreek Hill. They are off to a very
Sure.
slow start against their standard. I get that. But that's still Andy Reid's offense, whether it's Eric Bieniemy or Nagy or whoever else you want to have. It's still Andy Reid's offense. And yeah, they haven't looked impressive, but they still have won. And that's
Yes.
kind of what they do. And they do that a lot at an 80% clip for the last 5 years and 4 games. So you know, and as far as not hitting Patrick Mahomes, like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning were protected. We can agree with that. They weren't necessarily lit up all that often. So I think that's what happens with the league with the stars. It's like, you know, hands off. And you don't want to get a 15-yard flag, 15-yard penalty, which puts them closer to the end zone. So,
no, but what I'm saying is I think teams are playing scared is what it is. And I think it's a bit more of a mirage than it is reality. And yes, Brady's and Patriots had slow Septembers, but we're also basing this off 20 years of watching them never have that affect them. Like we talked about yesterday, this is a unique situation for Patrick Mahomes. He didn't come into the league and win with, you know, less than stellar talent. He came in with a pretty good situation, John. I mean, there's like only the hardcore Chiefs fans are going to deny that and pretend like, you know, they were a basement dwelling franchise when the reality of it was they were a playoff team the year before. They were a upgrade away from quarterback. I mean, he's obviously an upgrade over Alex Smith. But my point being is that even fans, media members have been living in this like 2018 bubble where like remember saying like, oh, anywhere's the red zone for Patrick Mahomes on the field. Oh, he can throw it anywhere. Oh, look at the sidearms. Look at this. Look at that. And it builds up this um, level of I don't know, invincibility on his behalf. But like, you know, it creates this narrative around the guy. And I think again, defensive coaches have been coaching somewhat based on that. And once they realize that, oh, this guy's a really good quarterback, but he's not a quote unquote magician. He's not, you know, some guy that does things that no one else does, like people constantly say on television. So once teams start to realize that, they're going to play a little bit more aggressive. And I think we see that. So, you know, as I was getting to, John, Super Bowl 51. The someone brought the stats up. I don't have them in front of me, but the it was one of the worst yards after the catch games and quote unquote, I guess, player separation games, so to speak. I don't know how I can properly phrase that, but the point was that Brady had to throw into more tight windows and got less help in terms of yards after the catch than than a lot of players have gotten. And this happened in a Super Bowl where he threw the ball 60 some odd times. That's what I'm talking about, John. Can Patrick Mahomes consistently beat tight coverage and throw and make every single right decision? Because we saw on Sunday night, I mean, yeah, he threw 2 interceptions, but he threw 4 very interceptable balls. And if you want to make the argument about the hold or non-hold or whatever, regardless of what it was, I don't think that hold prevented or caused that bad pass, John. That was a bad pass, regardless of if he was held or not, because Allen Lazard was not going in the direction that the ball was originally thrown. It looked like he was kind of starting to cut in. The ball was kind of errantly thrown outside. So that's my point, John. When teams start to realize that, yeah, the talent at wide receiver isn't there this year, they can start playing them a little bit differently, and then you're going to see more problems, and you might see a few more losses.
Oh yeah, I'm not doubting that they could go 11-6, 12-5, whatever it may be. But again, he didn't have Tyreek Hill last year.
But he had a much better surrounding cast, and again, Travis Kelce was
mostly Juju Smith-Schuster, who we've seen with the Patriots is or
I'm not knocking him for playing with the Patriots. The Patriots offense stinks, and it has for the last 3+ years. It's just been mediocre, and at this point, I'm not gonna knock Juju for that. I mean, again, we're talking about last year, and Travis Kelce had one of the best offensive seasons for a tight end in NFL history. So that's and John, that was over 50% of like the offensive
pass for last year, 4,700 yards.
Yeah, well,
and then how many did Travis Kelce have? Like 1,300 yards receiving? Like I'm trying to put the numbers together.
Well, I think I misspoke there. It was a significant amount. What was over 50% though was the collective yards after the catch, which was by far the largest number in the league, and they're not getting that, John. That's my point. And he's always been a big yak guy because that's how Andy Reid offenses operate, just like in San Francisco. Why do you think?
Good.
Quote unquote.
Maybe Bill O'Brien ought to study some of these offenses and try to figure out how to get some people open for the Patriots, because obviously they can't. And then the quarterback obviously needs people wide open because that's all he's ever dealt with playing at Alabama. A quarterback at Alabama. So that's a whole other issue. But my point being, that's kind of the idea, and I get it. And as far as Kelce, the injury, maybe he shouldn't even be playing at this point, but he's trying to gut it out. And maybe by the time they get to the bye week or whatever, I'm not sticking up for the Kansas City Chiefs. Believe me, I couldn't care less if they win, lose, or tie. But it's just like right now they are the team that everybody kind of focuses on to beat.
Sure.
I would think,
of course.
Right. So with that comes a lot of other stuff. So, and I think defenses have played them pretty tough. I thought the Jets started the game really like on cloud 9, but then they kind of buttoned up in the second half. And even Jacksonville played a pretty good game against them defensively. It was more Trevor Lawrence had a bad day. And forget the Bears, because and 9 other guys could probably score against the Bears. So I mean, I think they'll catch on, and then he's going to have to adjust to the adjustments. We'll see if he can do that. Absolutely.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, I think that's where we're going to come to a head is like when defensive coordinators realize that again they can play. You know what I mean? They can play not scared. I mean this. I've seen enough of Patrick Mahomes to play that he's the best quarterback in the league, sure, but he's spoken of like he's like a couple tiers above everyone else, and he does things everyone else doesn't do, and I'm like, and it drives me nuts, John. That's probably again I've said it before.
It does.
It does, and it's not. It has nothing, and that's the thing. People think it's like a Tom Brady thing. No, it has nothing to do with Tom Brady because like he's. It's foolish to even mention him in the same sentence at this point in their careers. I mean, if you want to talk to me in 10, 15 years, sure, then maybe we can have the conversation if he gets closer. But the reality of it is it's foolish because like you're an old guy, John. You've seen a lot of quarterbacks. I say that meaning like you're wise and you've seen quite a bit.
I am very wise.
Yes. You
And
are
very
very
old.
wise and very old. But
Leonidas was the best I ever saw. Let me tell you.
hey, hey, it is what it is. I was gonna say I was gonna try another name out there, but I'm like, oh, you really went all the way back there. I can't really.
Otto Graham, bring him up.
Norm Van Brocklin, is he
There
in?
you go.
Yeah, there you go.
One of my guys.
But the point is like we're starting to lose sight of the reality of the history of this game. When we have these outrageous and unfortunately, John, I don't think we're going back. I think that the cat's out of the bag, so to speak, with this type
That's
of.
all sports, though, right, Ian? I mean, because all we heard about all summer is that Shohei Ohtani is the greatest baseball player ever.
Oh,
This
sure.
is his
No,
third
exactly.
incredible season, and I'm like, yeah, exactly. And basketball, all of a sudden, Nikola Jokic is better than Hakeem Olajuwon.
Yeah.
That was a narrative after he won his first championship, and yeah, we see this in all sports. Maybe it holds true in tennis because the three greatest tennis players are all contemporaries, right? Nadal, Federer, and Jokic and Djokovic. So maybe that does hold because they just obliterated all the records. But yeah, this is what we see now, right? So and look, everybody's on Twitter, everybody's on Instagram. 3 million people do podcasts, so they got to say something. So they go over the edge with so many of these, quote unquote, hot takes.
No, and that's really what it is. It's a cottage industry of hot takes, and it's just something that, unfortunately, we kind of have to deal with, and just kind of live through it and accept and understand that, yeah, you know what, this is probably what it's going to be like, from here on out, because that's just what gets reaction. Is it doesn't necessarily have to be. It doesn't have to be necessarily accurate or highly supported. It's just you have to come up with something that gets a reaction. That's it, and that's a shame. But anyways, more. Oh, go ahead.
I just was going to say I worked in political talk radio, which is 10 times worse than sports talk. And the action was wrong and strong is better than right and weak.
Right.
Like if you can have the most outlandish opinion on something, but if you're forceful about it, people may just shut you off and say, you know what, he's right. I just don't want to hear it anymore. But yeah, no, I mean, I think obviously I do think he's the best quarterback in football, but I don't think he's lapped the field. No, this isn't Wayne Gretzky dominating the NHL in 1983. Not even close.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a little bit of a we just got to kind of rein it in a little bit, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion.
Your job.
That's my job, apparently. But no, anyways, a lot of stuff that we didn't get a chance to get to. I did want to bring up that Miami and Buffalo game, because as quickly as we hopped on the Miami bandwagon, boy, did that we take a huge jump off in 1 week, because a team, you go out, you hang 70, on Denver, who's just a bad team. Let's be honest. I mean, we thought maybe they might still be kind of good defensively, but they're not. I mean, they're bad, and we saw that again this past week. So they go out and they hang 70 on Denver, and then they just get dominated by the Bills, who kind of quietly, someone said they remind them of the 2019 Chiefs, and I think there are a lot of similarities in that, because the year before, the Chiefs got a lot of the hype, and in 2018, because they kind of exploded onto the scene, and everyone's like, oh my God, the Chiefs this, Chiefs that. They get to the AFC Championship game, they fall short, and then in 2019 they go about things a little bit quieter. Lamar Jackson's the talk of the town. He has this great MVP season, and the Chiefs kind of go about their business. And I kind of feel like, and we talked about this a little bit, John, that the Bills, certainly compared to last year, they're flying a little bit under the radar. And I think that might have been a good thing. And we kind of panicked after week 1, because, well, after months and months and months of waiting for the new Bills, we saw a completely terrible Bills team. But the 3 weeks since, they look good, really good.
On both sides of the ball, too. The defense has really stepped up. Obviously, their offense is very explosive, and that's a great comparison, Ian, because in 2019, the Chiefs at one point were 6-4. Remember when Mahomes hurt his knee on the quarterback sneak, came back, and then lost a close game to the Titans. At that point, they were 6-4. Then they won their last 6 regular season games. Caught a break when the Patriots lost in the last game of the season to the Dolphins. So now the Chiefs, with a 2 seed, got a bye. The Patriots had to play the Titans in the wild card round and ultimately lost. So they caught a break there, which sometimes you need. You need that every once in a while that, you think you're going to be the 3 seed, now you become the 2 seed, although it's different now with just one team getting a bye in each conference. But yeah, here's the thing. There was so much hype for them last year. And, they were 13-3 because they didn't play the 17th game because of DeMar
Right.
Hamlin. But their 3 losses were all winnable games. I mean, they lost, I think, by 1 to Miami, by like 2 to the Jets, and by 3 to Minnesota. I mean, they were close to going undefeated. They weren't always impressive in doing it. But yeah, it's a lot quieter this year because a lot of people like me picked the Jets until Aaron Rodgers got hurt. And then Miami looked so good the first 3 weeks. People were saying, well, now it's Miami's division. Well, I guess it's still Buffalo's division. They're still the team to beat.
Yeah, and look, I mean, we see the, we saw obviously, in week 1, Miami give up a ton of points, which obviously is concerning, especially when you have competitive teams that can. I mean, obviously the Bills can match them scoring, but they're so much better than them defensively, and that's kind of the big that's the big difference between those two teams right now. And I also think Buffalo's kind of, they've gone through the ringer a little bit the last few years. They've dealt with the hype, they dealt with the disappointment, they dealt with some of the big game losses and stuff like that. So I think they're a little bit better equipped where Miami's kind of just entering the fray, really. And there's going to be some rude awakening moments. This could be one of them, this past weekend, you win by 50 and then get blown out by 28. And it wasn't like, it wasn't really close. Buffalo really dominated that whole game. So again, it's going to be interesting to see how that ultimately plays out, but Buffalo's looking pretty strong, and probably I'd say the best team in the AFC right now.
Oh yeah. There's no undefeated team in the AFC. There's 3-1, 3 straight blowout wins over some good competition, right? I mean, I wouldn't call the Raiders good competition, but give them credit for blowing out the Commanders, who are 2-2, and one of their losses was in overtime to the Eagles. So the Commanders have been pretty competitive, and then to do what they did to Miami last week was like, don't forget about us. We're still the bully on the block, and that's what Buffalo has been for the last 3-4 years in the AFC East. Yeah, I would say they're the best team right now, Ian, because they have a quarterback who can win games on his own. He can also lose them. He does have 2 or 3 games a year where he's god awful, but now their defense is stepping up, and that's what's maybe going to separate them from the rest of the conference.
Yeah, and look, I mean, the division, obviously, the Jets without Aaron Rodgers are kind of, treading water. They'll be competitive, but I don't see them as any sort of threat. The Patriots obviously have certainly struggled on offense, but now they're dealing with 2 pretty significant injuries on defense, in Matthew Judon and Christian Gonzalez. So that's an issue for them. And like I said yesterday, I'm not sitting here and calling for Mac Jones to be benched after one game, because the reality of it is, John, he was the least of their problems for much of the first few games of the season. He didn't play spectacular, but there were a lot of other issues outside of the quarterback play. He had a bad game this past week. I mean, there's no softening the blow. It was a bad game, and it was a very disconcerting, or a concerning, really, performance. But I'm also not gonna react to that. There is pressure on this team, though, to start putting it together, because it is the same script that we've been watching for the last couple of years. And it's like they do some nice things, but they can't finish games, and they make too many big mistakes. And those are 2 things that just never, ever, ever, ever happened with Tom Brady under center. Ever, John. Like, I'm not exaggerating. Like, you don't win every game, but you sure as hell know how to finish. And I think that the Patriots knew how to finish any game that they were in if they had an opportunity. I don't know if this team does. I haven't seen it this year, last year, the year before. And at a certain point, the honeymoon period, if you want to call it, does start to wear out, because now it's like, okay, I can, like I said earlier in the season, I can live with a couple moral victories and be okay with that, but that's about it. And I think we've exhausted those moral victories, quote unquote, already this season. So very, very disappointing on the Patriots' behalf. And they got a lot of things to work out, because at 1-3, it's they have pretty much no wiggle room now to lose much more if they even want to think about playoff appearance. And yeah, it's unfortunate, but anyways, we'll get to a lot more of this stuff throughout the week. Obviously, we're gonna say goodbye now. We gotta take off a little bit early, but we'll be back to on Thursday to kind of preview Thursday Night Football and kind of give any more final thoughts on this week because, well, it was an interesting weekend, John, and I still feel like we got some more to cover, like Khalil Mack's 6 sacks against his former team. That was pretty interesting. So, anyways, thank you everyone for tuning in. We appreciate it. We will see you on Thursday to kind of jump right back into it. So, thank you everyone, and we'll talk to you then.